That's right. So I was joking with my friends today that I tried to memorize this, but I'm getting a little too old for this memorizing thing. So brain space is a little limited these days, so we're gonna do this with reading a little bit, so bear with me. He doesn't actually know this, but I do this work for my brother. Of course, after almost 15 years in education, there are a host of students and friends and situations that influence the reason why I choose to do social justice work and the story that I want to tell. But if I'm honest, it really starts with my brother. My younger brother and I were raised by a badass single mother in Richmond, Virginia. The schools where we grew up had many similarities to where many of us taught. But I always say it was my mother and a string of great teachers who understood how I learned, who really helped me understand my value and want to go to college. My brother's story wasn't exactly the same. Same badass mom, in many situations, same teachers. But those teachers didn't understand my brother's smarts. Interestingly enough, if you were to ask me who was smarter, I'd say hands down my brother. You see, I was a traditional learner. I did exactly what I was asked to do in class. I did my homework, and I didn't really need to study for a test. My brother, he was the type that searched the house for things to take apart so he could put them back together again. He also didn't have to study much to pass, but he wanted and needed to be consistently challenged. He was quick and bright, and sometimes that appeared to teachers as rebellious and overactive. He quickly began to hate school and underperform. People doubted his intelligence when he was simply bored. One of the stories I remember vividly was when he was a senior in high school and my mother was called to the principal's office about my brother's chronic tardiness. He was driving himself to school at the time and was consistently showing up late for his first period class. The principal, with my mother present, asked my brother why he continued to show up late and reminded him that if he continued to do so, he'd lose his driving privileges. And my brother, being the guy that he is, looked at his principal and said, "Well, sir, with all due respect, why should I show up on time for class when all my teacher gives me is worksheets?" I remember being away in my senior year of college listening to my mom tell this story and how angry it made me. That my brother's school experience could be so different from mine, and that I knew the impact that would have on the rest of his life. And that our experience on the south side of Richmond was so different from the kids in the affluent parts of the city, and how there were millions of students across this country who were having a similar experience to ours, and how clear of an injustice that was to me. And that it was only one of the injustices that people of color were facing in our country. So when you ask me what social justice means to me, it means boys and girls like my brother will be seen for the many ways they can learn, thrive, and contribute in an educational space instead of being seen as troublemakers. But it also means Black women can walk into their workplaces, especially the places that work in and with communities that look like them, and not be told to fix their face in a meeting or come across less aggressive next time. It means not having to stress myself out and plot strategies with my mommy friends in advance about how we will secure a high-quality pre-K seat for our daughters, because every school would be high quality. It means the mothers of your students won't have to work 3 jobs to make a comfortable living for her family because she'd make a livable wage. And it means being able to express my truth and pain as a Black American in a classroom, a boardroom, a Super Bowl field, or a Grammy stage without white America bristling and telling me I'm too sensitive or racist. It means a Black boy playing with a toy gun in a park or at a Walmart, or walking home with Skittles, or a woman forgetting to signal when she changed lanes wouldn't be a death sentence. And it would mean that when we had to talk about these things, if we had to talk about these things, people of color would be believed without the need for a cell phone video or a cosign by a white person. So when you ask me what social justice means to me, it's more than equity. Because you see, equity is ensuring that everyone has what they need, some getting more than others, in order to compete against the barriers of injustice. But justice is removing the barriers altogether. Thankfully, things turned out okay for my brother. his path was tougher than mine, but it was his, and he's thriving now. I contribute that to his own perseverance, and of course, our mom. But his situation could have easily been one where his good intentions and the sore needs of a praying mother wouldn't have been enough to overcome the possible death sentence of a failed education. I'm sure many of us could think of someone in that position. And the more I live and work, the more I realize that we will never see the injustices that choke our society release its hold until people of color, along with a significant number of white people, especially those with power and influence, decide to disrupt, dismantle, and discontinue these systems of barriers of injustice and oppression. So the question I really want to ask myself is, what am I doing today in my work and in my interactions to remove those barriers? That's social justice. Just like some of my brother's teachers, I know I missed the mark many years along the way, and there have been instances when I didn't speak up and I knew something didn't feel right, and times when I made a judgment about a student's abilities, let my ego get in the way, and chose a punitive response over a restorative one. But the story I want to tell, the story I hope our whole community can tell, is one that is truthful about the messiness of social justice work. One that is action-oriented but also reflective and self-correcting. One that listens to and respects oppressed people and communities and their knowledge of what's best for them. That is equal parts challenging and redeeming. That seeks to act with love, realizing that my freedom is directly connected to yours. What am I doing today in my work and in my interactions to truly work towards social justice? I challenge you to ask yourself that question too. And even though on some days my answer might not be where I know it should be, and I'll make mistakes and take detours, that's the story I want to tell. What will yours be? Thank you.